Okay, so if you've ever looked around your house, maybe seen a leaky faucet or, that kitchen that's really showing its age,
Uh-huh.
or maybe just a stack of bills piling up and thought, maybe I should sell, chances are you immediately felt this wave of dread.
Oh, yeah. It's familiar for a lot of homeowners.
Just the thought of all those repairs, right? And then strangers just parading through your house for showings.
Endless
And
showings.
the whole traditional sale process, it just feels so slow, so drawn out. It really is a lot.
It absolutely is.
But what if, just maybe, there was another way? A path to kind of bypass all that stress. Especially if you're sitting on some decent equity in your home, the value you actually own.
Well, that's exactly what we're getting into today.
Good.
Yeah, this deep dive is all about this growing trend of selling homes as is directly to cash investors.
Okay.
And we're looking particularly at a dynamic market like Orlando. Because this isn't just, another selling tactic. It could be a real solution.
A solution for difficult situations.
Exactly. Like if you're facing really expensive repairs you just can't swing.
Right.
Or maybe something serious like pre-foreclosure.
Right. And for this deep dive, we're drawing on some fantastic insights from a real expert in this specific area, Stacy and Stevens. She's seen how this works firsthand.
She really understands this niche.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to pull back the curtain, understand how these cash investors actually think about properties.
Yeah, what they're looking for.
And look at the advantages some might surprise you, and, okay, the disadvantages too. Be balanced.
Got to look at both sides.
And figure out who this approach really works best for. The goal is clear, actionable insights, maybe some eye-opening stuff that could change how you think about selling.
Absolutely.
So let's just be real for a second. You know that feeling, right? When your house stops feeling like your safe space and more like, well, a burden,
A money pit, yeah.
trapping you with repairs you can't afford, or worse, that nightmare scenario of pre-foreclosure looming, that time when you're behind on payments and the bank starts making noise. It's incredibly stressful.
Or maybe it's just the burnout, like the thought of one more weekend cleaning for strangers wandering through your living room.
It's
Yeah,
just exhausting. And life happens.
totally. Curveballs, a sudden job move, maybe a divorce, inheriting a house you didn't plan on.
Or just being tired of the upkeep.
All things that make you desperately need a sale that's fast and hassle-free.
Exactly. And that specific situation, that's where selling your home as is to a cash investor, it can almost feel like a superhero swooping in.
Superhero solution, I like that.
Yeah. It's about getting out quickly without pouring, potentially tens of thousands into fixing things up for buyers who are going to pick apart every little detail anyway.
Right, the picky retail buyer.
It's like freeing up your equity, but skipping the giant headache that usually comes with it.
That's interesting because, a traditional buyer, they will focus on the chipped paint or the old carpet.
Oh, absolutely. Nitpick city.
But cash investors, you're saying they look at it totally differently, through a different lens, completely different. It's not about finding their dream home. It's about opportunity. They see potential where others see problems.
Okay, so break that down. What kind of opportunity lenses are they using?
Well, there are basically three main perspectives. First is the flip potential.
Okay, like the TV shows?
Sort of. Think HGTV stars, but maybe lift dramatic lighting. They look at a house and calculate what it could be worth after a serious makeover,
So they're doing the math.
meticulously.
Yeah.
They factor in every repair cost, labor, materials, permits, holding costs while they own it, and, crucially, their own profit margin.
Right, they need to make money on the flip.
Of course, it's a business. They figure out if they can renovate it and sell it quickly for a profit. And let me tell you, in a hot market like Orlando, flipped homes move fast.
So that's one angle. What else?
The second perspective is hold for rental income.
Ah, makes sense for Orlando.
Exactly. You've got the tourism boom, Disney, Universal, all of it, plus steady job growth. So a lot of investors aren't looking to flip. They want to buy properties to rent out long term.
So they're looking at location, size.
Yep, location size, school district, the potential rent they can charge. They're assessing if it fits their long-term buy and hold strategy.
Okay, flip potential, rental potential. And you mentioned this idea of wholesale versus retail price earlier. Can we dig into that? Because that sounds like where the homeowner might pause.
Yeah, this is a really key insight. Investors pay what's called a wholesale price. And yes, that price is almost always lower than the retail price you might get listing on the MLS.
Right, so the immediate reaction is, why would I take less?
Understandable reaction.
Yeah.
But here's the why. The investor takes on all the risk. the risk of unexpected repair costs blowing the budget, the risk of holding the property for months while renovating, the risk that the market might shift.
All right, so they're absorbing the uncertainty.
Precisely. And in return for that lower price, what does the seller get? Speed, certainty, and zero hassle. No repairs, no showings, no waiting for loan approvals.
So the insight isn't just the offer is lower.
No. It's that for some people, that discount isn't really coming off their equity. It's like they're paying to get rid of the stress tax.
Stress tax, I like that.
The cost of maintaining a property they can't fix or don't want to. It's less about losing money on the sale and maybe more about buying your peace of mind.
That's a really powerful way to look at it, buying peace of mind. Okay, so we get the investor mindset, but let's flip back to the homeowner. How does this actually feel better? What are the real tangible benefits?
Okay, let's list them out.
Mm-hmm.
There are some really compelling ones. Number one, and maybe the biggest sigh of relief for many, no repairs needed.
Zero repairs.
Zero. Got that leaky roof you've been putting off, foundation crack making you nervous, a kitchen straight out of the 70s. Doesn't matter.
Seriously?
Seriously. Investors buy it as is. You don't touch a thing. No contractors, no dust, no spending money you might not even have.
Wow. Okay, just that alone is huge for anyone who's stared down a big repair bill. What else? You mentioned speed.
Yes. Number two, fast closing. Traditional sales. My gosh, they can draw on inspections, appraisals, waiting for the buyer's bank loan. It can take months.
Feels like forever sometimes.
Right. Cash investors, though, they have the funds ready. They can often close in as little as 7 to 14 days.
1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah. Think about that. For someone needing cash fast or needing to move like yesterday, that speed isn't just convenient, it's a lifeline.
Definitely. Okay, what's next?
Third, something called leaseback options. This offers amazing flexibility.
How does that work?
So, say you need the cash from the sale now, but you're not quite ready to physically move out yet. Maybe you're waiting for your new place to be ready.
Okay.
Many investors will let you close the sale, get your money, and then rent the home back from them for a short period, maybe a month or two. It gives you breathing room.
That's really helpful. Avoids that stressful gap. What else?
Fourth, take what you want, leave the rest. This is another big convenience factor, meaning you don't have to clean the place out completely. Tired of figuring out what to do with old furniture, unwanted appliances, boxes of junk in the basement?
Oh, the dreaded clean out.
Exactly. With many cash investors, you just take the things you actually want, and you can literally leave everything else behind. They'll handle the clean out.
No hauling stuff to the dump or donation centers?
Nope. They factor that into their costs.
Right.
It's a huge time and energy saver, especially if you're dealing with, say, an inherited property full of stuff.
That sounds incredibly convenient. Okay, what about the showing process? We talked about how awful that can be.
Right. So benefit number 5, no showings, no strangers. Just forget about it.
Really, none at all.
None. Forget spending weekends frantically tidying up. Forget having strangers poking through your closets. Forget having to leave your own home at inconvenient times.
That constant disruption.
Gone. It's typically just 1 or maybe 2 visits from the investor or their team, and that's it. It's a private, direct transaction. Huge psychological relief.
I can imagine. Okay, we're up to 6.
Yes. Number 6, and this is a big financial one, no realtor fees or closing costs.
Wait, none? How does that work?
In many cash deals, especially when working through someone connected like Stacy Ann, the investor agrees to cover those costs. That includes the typical seller closing costs and often any real estate agent commissions involved.
So the standard 5-6% commission.
Poof. Gone from your side of the ledger. And closing costs, another couple of percent maybe, also covered. That means significantly more of the sale price ends up directly in your pocket.
That's a substantial amount of money we're talking about.
It really is.
Yeah.
And finally, number 7, and this is critical for people in tough spots, certainty in uncertain times.
Meaning the deal won't fall through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially important if you're in pre-foreclosure or just really need the sale to happen. Cash investors aren't relying on getting a bank loan.
Right, no mortgage contingency.
Correct. Their offer is based on cash they have available. So the risk of the deal collapsing weeks down the line because the buyer's financing fell through, it's virtually eliminated. When they make an offer, it's usually a solid, certain deal.
Okay, those are some pretty compelling advantages. No repairs, fast closing, leave your junk, no showings, no fees, certainty. It paints a picture.
It really does offer a different path.
But, okay, let's be balanced. No solution is perfect for everyone. What are the potential downsides? The things people need to consider?
Absolutely. Transparency is key. The main one, as we touched on, is typically a lower sale price initially.
The wholesale price.
Right. Investors have to factor in the repair costs, holding costs, and profit. So the number they offer will likely be less than the absolute top dollar you might get on the open market if the house was fully repaired and marketed perfectly.
Okay, that's the trade-off.
It is. But, and this is a big but, you have to compare apples to apples. Remember all those costs we just talked about avoiding?
Repairs, fees, closing costs, holding costs.
Exactly. When you subtract all those expenses you don't pay in a cash sale from the potential higher retail price, that gap in your actual net proceeds often shrinks dramatically.
Sometimes it might even disappear.
Sometimes it even flips, and you net more from the cash offer. It really depends on the situation, the amount of repairs needed, how long a traditional sale might take. You have to look at the final number in your bank account, not just the starting offer price.
Got it. Net versus gross. What else? Any other disadvantages?
Well, usually there's limited negotiation.
Meaning the offer is kind of take it or leave it.
Often, yeah.
Yeah.
Because these investors, they're pros. They've done their homework, crunched the numbers very carefully based on their model. So their initial offer is usually pretty close to their final offer. There's less back and forth haggling than in a traditional sale.
Okay, so less wiggle room.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
And the last point, which is maybe less a disadvantage of the concept and more warning, not every investor is legit.
The bad apples.
Unfortunately, yes. There are predatory buyers out there. People who might make an attractive initial offer just to get you under contract.
And then try to lower the price later? Or back out?
Exactly. They might use flimsy inspection reports or just disappear at the last minute, leaving you in a terrible bind, especially if you're facing foreclosure.
That sounds awful.
It is. And it really highlights why working with someone who knows the reputable players is so crucial. An expert acts like a shield, vetting the investors, making sure you're dealing with someone ethical who will actually close. They protect you from those rushed emotional decisions that predatory buyers prey on.
That makes perfect sense. Protecting the homeowner is key. Okay, so considering all the pros, the cons, who is this path really ideal for? If you're listening, how do you know if this as-is cash sale is right for you?
Yeah, let's pinpoint those scenarios. If you find yourself nodding along to these, it's definitely worth exploring. First, if you've got tons of equity.
Meaning you own a lot of your home outright.
Exactly. Maybe you've paid off your mortgage or you only owe a small amount. You're basically sitting on a pile of cash tied up in the house.
So why go through the hassle?
Right. Why sink time and money into repairs and sales prep when you can just unlock that cash windfall quickly and easily?
Makes sense. What's another key group?
People for whom you can't afford repairs. We're talking major stuff. A new roof, foundation problems, a full HVAC replacement. These things can cost $10,000, $20,000, sometimes much more.
Money most people don't just have lying around.
Precisely. If you don't have the cash, or maybe you just don't want the headache of managing huge renovation projects, and as a sale is your escape hatch, you get out from under the problem.
Okay, that's a big one. What about financial distress?
Absolutely critical. If you're facing pre-foreclosure, falling behind on mortgage payments is terrifying. Foreclosure itself can wreck your credit for years.
A total financial disaster.
It can be. A quick cash sale allows you to potentially pay off the lender, settle other debts maybe, and avoid that foreclosure hitting your record. It protects your financial future.
A way to stop the bleeding, essentially.
A very effective way. Then there are people who are simply burned out.
Burned out by the house itself.
Yeah. Maybe it's that inherited property you never really wanted and it's just become a source of stress and expense. Or maybe it's a house needing attention after a divorce settlement. Or just you don't have the energy or desire for maintenance anymore.
You just want to walk away.
Exactly. Selling as is lets you do that. Walk away without the headache, without the ongoing burden.
And finally,
if you need to move ASAP, like right now.
Job relocation, family emergency.
Could be anything. Or maybe you just want a fresh start somewhere else quickly.
Huh.
A cash sale is the fastest way to liquidate the asset, get cash in hand, and be free to move on, no strings attached.
Okay, that really clarifies the ideal candidate profile, and it loops back to what you said about not every investor being legit. It really drives home the need for guidance, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Having an expert like Stacy and Stevens in your corner seems less like a luxury and more like a necessity in this kind of transaction?
I completely agree. The value they bring is immense, especially in this specific niche.
So what does that expert guidance actually look like? What are they doing for the homeowner?
Okay, several key things. First, and maybe most obviously, they bring investor connections.
The network you mentioned.
Exactly. Someone like Stacy Ann has spent years cultivating relationships with the top reputable cash investors in the Orlando area. She knows who's reliable, who has the funds ready to go, who closes quickly, and who's likely to offer the fairest price for your specific property and situation.
So it saves the homeowner from having to blindly find and vet investors themselves.
Immense time saving and risk reduction. She's already done that legwork. Second, remember that point about commissions?
Yeah, the seller doesn't pay.
Right, no commission costs for the seller. When you work with an agent specializing in these types of deals, their commission is typically paid by the investor buyer.
So the expertise is essentially free for the homeowner.
Effectively, yes. You get the guidance, the negotiation leverage, the connections, without having to pay a commission out of your proceeds. You keep more of your money.
That's a huge benefit. What else?
Third, it's the personal touch. Selling a home, even under these circumstances, maybe especially under these circumstances, is emotional.
For sure, it's your home.
Right. A good agent understands that.
Mhm.
They're not just facilitating a transaction. They're there to listen to your story, understand your needs, guide you patiently, and make the process as smooth and, frankly, as stress-free as possible. It's a partnership.
Having someone empathetic who gets it.
Critical. And finally, local expertise. Orlando isn't just one monolithic market.
Right, you've got different areas, different dynamics.
Totally. Think about the tourist areas near Disney versus, say, luxury flips in Winter Park or historic homes in College Park.
Yeah.
An agent with deep local knowledge understands these nuances. They know which investors specialize in which types of properties or neighborhoods.
And that helps get the best deal.
It helps position your specific home to the right investors for maximum value. They understand the local market trends, rental rates, renovation costs, all crucial for negotiating the best possible as-is offer for you.
Okay, that all makes a lot of sense. Can we make it even more real? Do you have maybe a couple of quick stories, examples of people who went this route?
Yeah, absolutely. These really show the impact. Think about Sarah. He was a single mom living over in Pine Hills,
Okay.
inherited her mother's house, but it was,
Uh-huh.
well, it needed a lot of work. We're talking probably $30,000 in repairs she just did not have. Plus, drowning in bills. Totally stressed.
That's tough.
Very. She connected with Stacy Ann, and within, I think it was 10 days, she had a solid cash offer from a trusted investor. No repairs needed.
Right.
She walked away with $85,000 cash in her pocket. No repairs, no realtor fees, and get this, they even gave her a 1-month lease back, so she had time to find a new place without rushing.
That's life-changing. Real liberation, like you said.
Total game changer for her. Or, take Mike, a retiree in College Park. He got hit with unexpected medical bills, fell behind on his mortgage, and was actually facing pre-foreclosure, terrified of losing the house, ruining his credit.
Nightmare scenario.
Absolutely. He worked with an expert, sold the house as is to an investor for $200,000. It was enough to pay off the entire mortgage, avoid the foreclosure completely.
And he had money left over.
And he had enough cash left over to basically start fresh without that crushing debt and stress hanging over him.
Yeah.
These aren't just abstract concepts. This approach really helps real people in difficult spots.
Those stories really hit home. And okay, to really drive the financial point home, let's crunch some numbers. Because that stress tax is real, but seeing the dollars and cents comparison, that's powerful.
Couldn't agree more. Numbers don't lie. So let's take a hypothetical Orlando home. Let's say it could be worth $300,000 if it were fully updated and perfect.
Okay, $300 retail potential.
But let's say it needs about $40,000 in repairs to get it to that perfect condition. New kitchen, baths, maybe flooring, paint, typical stuff.
$40,000, that's a chunk of change.
It is. So let's look at the MLS retail sale scenario first.
A traditional route.
Right. Potential sale price. Yeah. $300,000.
Okay.
Minus repairs. Minus $40,000 right off the top.
Ouch.
Minus realtor fees, let's say 6%. Minus $18,000.
Okay.
Minus seller closing costs, maybe 2%, maybe $6,000.
Still going down.
And don't forget holding costs. Mortgage payments, taxes, insurance, utilities, while it sits on the market for, say, 6 months. That could easily be another $20,000, $12,000.
Wow. Okay.
So you do the math. $300K, $40K, $18K, $6K, $12K. Your estimated net 12?
Yeah.
You might be around $224,000.
224 and the time.
In a time involved. Minimum 3-6 months, probably longer, plus all the hassle and stress.
Okay, that's scenario one. Now, the cash investor sale.
Right, cash investor sale scenario for the same house. The investor's offer, the wholesale price, might be $240,000.
Okay, lower starting point.
Lower starting point. But now look, repairs needed, $0 out of your pocket.
Nice.
Realtor fees, $0, assuming the investor covers them.
Good.
Closing costs, $0 investor pays. Holding costs, $0. Because the deal closes in maybe 10 days.
Right.
So your net to you, it's $240,000.
Wait, so $224,000 net the traditional way after months of work and stress.
Versus $240,000 net the cash way in about 10 days with no worker stress.
That's actually more money net in the cash scenario.
In this hypothetical, yes. And even if the numbers came out closer or slightly less, you have to ask, what's the value of avoiding months of uncertainty, stress, repairs, showings?
The peace of mind factor.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the difference. When you add up all the costs, financial and emotional risked, the cash sale often comes out ahead or is very competitive, especially for homes needing work or for sellers needing speed and certainty.
That really puts it into perspective. So wrapping things up, if you're listening and you're feeling overwhelmed by potential repairs, or you're facing that pre-foreclosure clock ticking down,
Or you just want to tap into your equity without the traditional selling circus.
then exploring selling your home as is to a cash investor, especially with expert guidance, seems like a genuinely viable, potentially liberating option.
It's about turning that tied-up equity into usable cash and turning that homeowner stress into, well, relief.
A clear path forward for a lot of people.
Which leads us to maybe a final thought for everyone listening to kind of mull over.
Okay.
Just ask yourself, what hidden costs, financial or emotional, might be lurking in your current plans for your home? What opportunities might you be overlooking? And how could just shifting your perspective on how to sell potentially unlock a level of freedom or financial certainty you hadn't considered before?